Hello, everyone. So this is number 2 in the series, Ancient Moon Woman and Friends, the new series of um, musings, teachings, learnings, and hopefully very inspiring conversations that I'm going to be producing in the future. The first guest is Suzi Joy Lever, a friend of mine, and it's really great that Suzi is the first guest. Being an Aries, the first house in the horoscope. So I'd love to introduce Suzi and say hello. Please do.
Oh, thank you so much, Jules. It's always a privilege to connect to you. We've only met physically once, but virtually, I've really enjoyed all our connections. So it's quite exciting to see what will unfold today.
Yeah. So we were having a little bit of a pre-chat, weren't we? And I indicated to you that I would love this series because it's titled Ancient Moon Woman, which is my alter ego, which I explained in the introductory video. That Ancient Moon Woman is my alter ego, my channeling aspect, my abilities to communicate with animals, communicate with plants, trees, medicines, elements, that kind of me, that aspect of me that is probably came with me when I was born, but which I discovered very late in life, or actually admitted to only late in life. And I decided to take on the alter ego of Ancient Moon Woman. And she's been with me nearly 7 years. So in terms of the spiritual, the consciousness, the mystical, how would you say that your own journey with that place in our lives, or that gift actually that we have as humans, how would you say that first came to you in your life?
I think I was always comfortable with the idea there was something more, although for much of my teenage years, I felt like life was meaningless. I couldn't see any meaning in it, and I actually suffered very extreme depression. But I always was comfortable people talking about reincarnation, or it was felt like my soul, yeah, this is all familiar. Um, but I had no kind of context for anything. I think the major thing in my life that really made a difference was getting involved with shamanic teachings with someone who was pioneering this in England in the late 80s. And there was a real kind of remembering for me that something about ceremony, something about my connection with the land. I was actually a city dweller. I was born and grew up in London and spent the first 42 years of my life in cities. But I always remember wanting to go to parks and just loving trees. Unlike a lot of people, I don't remember having one of these childhoods with imaginary friends or connecting in that way. If I did, it still seems quite buried. But somehow there was it just felt so right being introduced to the shamanic path, which is very much about we're all connected and has lots of beautiful ceremonies and chanting and drumming and dancing and movement and energy and passion. And I responded well to that.
Yeah, I know from my connection with you that you're very much into sound. I was nearly said music, but I think you deliver sound in different ways, not just music. And you did, in collaboration with someone, you hosted online a throning ceremony for me. Would you believe that's nearly 5.5 years ago? It was June the 8th, 2018. And it's the first time I'd come across people who literally have practiced shamanic in a shamanic way for a while. I was new to it and thought, kind of arrogantly, I suppose, that everybody was new to it. But no, people were already doing it. And I was very lucky to connect to you and another lady. And you held for me a beautiful croning ceremony, which was the first time we connected. And you wrote me a chant to go with that. And it was incredibly powerful, was that ceremony. Very, very powerful. So it almost kind of helped to not activate my shamanic connection, because I'd already connected, but only a few months prior to that had I connected to the shamanic world. The ceremony kind of fixed it. I don't know what the word is, you know, helped it to become more embodied, the shamanic aspects of things. And for the viewers and or the listeners, some who may or not be that familiar with literal shamanism, you know, would you be able to just explain a little bit more about shamanism or shamanism, how it's pronounced?
Yeah, it does depend how, you know, it's pronounced in different ways. I mean, obviously, it's English way of saying things. It's fundamentally what the indigenous people just practice as a daily lifestyle, that we're all connected, and their whole way of being was, you know, if they were eating meat, they would bless the animals, bless the spirit before they killed the animal, and just real that we are all one. We're not the sort of separate units as humans and animals and plants. And the traditional teachings, they were very much in contact with the seasons, with the elements. And with, you know, modernized industrialization, we just lost a lot of this simplicity, which also meant we lost the humility and the perspective that we're part of something so much greater than ourselves, instead of, you know, that we're running the show just because we've mastered technology, if we ever do. And of course, we've got AI now, which is a whole other subject that I don't particularly want to pick up on. But
Yeah. So for me, the first word that comes to me when I think of shamanism is animism, in that, from my angle, it's the fact that anything and everything has a spirit, including inanimate objects, or we think they're inanimate, like a mountain or, you know, a blade of grass even, you know, for me, has a spirit. And spirit has come to mean so much more to me now. It's come to mean around intelligent energy, almost like the flow of the universal energy, which is becoming more acceptable to talk about in polite society, through the quantum mechanics becoming a known thing through the science, which are people who are more into realism than something like animism would connect to the quantum through the scientific route. And I think I used to be a bit snooty about science and think science is catching up to shamans and ancient wisdom keepers. And actually, I shouldn't be that way, because, to be honest, it's all to get connected, isn't it? So realism is connected to animism as well. That the learning through science is as valid as the learnings that our ancestors went through to, you know, chart the stars as they did. You know, the ancient Egyptians knew what the heavens looked like, you know. So for me now, and especially since the lockdown, because the lockdown gave me the opportunity to go very, very deep within and to hone my own physical, psychic response. So I was getting psychic responses in the body as well. So it was that embodiment of a skill that was very cerebral prior to that. So it became more heart centered. And one thing that hits me really powerfully is a channeling that I did, a journey. And the word that came through was bridge, And it was bridge between, there seemed to be a huge bifurcation during the lockdown. Some people thought one thing, other people thought another, people were scared, you know, and it was about bridge, you know, bridge the two, keep bridging, keep bridging, keep bridging. So for me, the bridge led me to learn about polarity, which led me to learn about balance, which led me to learn about harmony, and again, back to the harmonics of the universe. So through that long-winded explanation, can we talk about the harmonics of sound?
Well, using science as an example, they've now proven so many things that were known in the metaphysical world or people knew through experience or intuition. But everything is connected. So when we connect to the frequencies of alignment, we're doing something very precious. You know, we can heal ourselves. Every cell in our body resonates at a particular frequencies. And when these are working together, then our bodies will be in balance. And I like the example of a choir master who's everybody's out of tune, all the instruments playing out of tune, and how discordant and ineffective it is, but how beautiful when that director can get them all in tune. And then we do, you know, it's just so kind of lost my train there, but I just want to say that, yeah, sound healing is very dear to my heart, because for me, it was the way of coming out of my head, feeling the vibration in my body, being over and over again mind blown about how quickly I could change my emotional and mental state through using sound. The powerfulness of sound coming through me, directed to other people with focus and intention. You know, everything is healable, and sound is a very powerful way of doing it. Science are now using ultrasound regularly in hospitals. You know, this was all known, but now it's much more validated. So, you know, science is allowing people to physically see things that perhaps you couldn't physically see, although technology is allowing people to see, you know, when people make sounds, it makes patterns, and some of those patterns are harmonious if the sound is harmonious.
That's an advantage of technology, isn't it? Where the internet has had a bad reputation, and it's also shown how it's an amazing World Wide Web, isn't it? It's the literal World Wide Web where
And
people can hop on.
everybody watching this, you know, it's because
Exactly.
of this.
So it's produced something like this, where two women who live, in the same country, but we live a couple of 100 miles away from each other. Older women can talk about something that might be a little bit niche. We can have our conversation and we can publish it and we can share it. We did speak before about how technology can be quite daunting for people who are older, and how you and I both had our challenges with tech. But you explained to me that you were very motivated to overcome your challenges around tech. And not only did you overcome them, you managed to use tech to bring forth your own healing service through sound.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I'm a proud owner of my YouTube channel, which it's got a mixture of things in, but the theme is really uplifting lyrics, and a lot of the tunes are very catchy. And I hope that people will listen to them more than once, so that they actually start having that earwig expression when you suddenly can't get a sound out of your head. And the words are, I guess, like positive affirmations, some of them, words to make you think. I believe that when I'm sharing my sounds and my music in this way, something comes through me that the listener will unconsciously pick up, and hopefully will really help their well-being and their alignment with what I call source.
So would you say that these are sort of divinely guided
Definitely.
expressions of your own creativity?
Definitely. I mean, I do write other songs, but there seems something special about the ones I've chosen to record. They seem to have their own energy. They often come with their own tune, and they come when I least expect them, or usually when I'm in nature, because that's, I think, where I'm most relaxed and I'm inspired, and I'm probably find it most easy to be in the present moment of the awe of the magic that's around us all the time.
Have you always appreciated that? I know you said when you lived in the city you enjoyed going to parks, but did you actually realise that it was almost the spirit of nature that was uplifting? That's my belief anyway, that there is an elemental spirit around nature that helps uplift me. Is
No,
that the same for you? Did you know that's what you were doing,
yeah,
or is
I
that
did.
something you discovered later?
I just loved having space. I just loved I just felt better. I just felt more relaxed. One day I was wondering why I feel so much better in nature, and I got a kind of inner voice saying, "You're not judging nature. You're not saying that blade of grass is growing incorrectly. You know, if I'm in my home, there's the kind of, oh, I should do the washing, or that needs dusting, or my mind's kind of constantly judging, analyzing, labeling, having dialogues. When I'm out in nature, I'm allowing nature to give to me. I'm allowing myself to receive from the birds that come to the bird feeder, from the unexpected squirrel, the mushrooms, just there's so much. There's so much. And I've recently recorded, it's not yet published, but will be in a couple of weeks, just a song about nature is our teacher. All our lessons are there, and I just, it brings me joy and wonder,
Mm,
and just so for me, it's the number one way I can kind of plug into incredible beauty of just being alive, which we just
yeah,
take so much for granted. I know
yeah,
every day we get up, there's no guarantee we're going to breathe, so straight away that's a miracle. But for me, nature is just such a variety. And also, in England where we have the seasons, the trees show us so gracefully about letting go of leaves at this time of year in the autumn. They don't agonize about it. They don't sort of have to talk to lots of people about it. They just, our time of the year, the days are shorter. This is what we do.
yeah, yeah. And when the first time I heard that kind of wisdom, actually, I didn't see it as wisdom. I heard it as, well, if trees can let go, you can let go. And my response in my head would be, I'm not a tree. Now, I know, I understand and truly believe I am a tree.
Mm.
I am you. I am whatever you have there in your background. I have, you know, a dog lay on his bed at the side of me. I'm him as well. Not just because I think we're made up of similar chemicals in different ways, mixed differently. I've got to the place of where I'm not a religious person, but I got to the place of understanding how religions were born and how belief systems were born. And I can see the sort of thread that runs through all of the religions, the belief systems, the spirituality. We call it so many different things, but it is all exactly the same thing. And it is understanding that we are literally part of the universe. Whatever the universe was created from, or if it was a who, a thing, and it, he, her, we don't actually know, but it was created because it's here. So it must have been created. And because it's here and we're in it, we're part of it. We're made up of very similar compound of chemicals to the stars in the universe. Without it being a lofty sounding, oh, I'm a starseed, a light worker, we are all part of the universe, aren't we? So if we're all part of the universe, we all have a part to play. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be here with the ability to be self-aware. That's my belief. My belief in the gift of self-awareness is we need to do something with it. And we can choose what to do with it, but it helps if we can tune into almost our divine blueprint. And I know it could start getting complicated, that it really could. And I do include this question in my coaching. I call myself a conscious coach. To me, the word consciousness just means love. So it's about my journey back to self-love, or back to remembering who I am, back to wholeness, back to integration. Whatever journey it was I did, it's helping people, supporting people to discover who they are, not who I say they should be, but who they are. And then sort of going, off you go, fly, go and fly now, off you go. And please do teach what you've learned about yourself, teach that to other people to help them learn about who they are and help other people to return to self-love.
That's so beautiful, Jules. I know that the work you're doing is so needed and as well as empowering for people because of course all our miseducation was about what other people thought we should learn and who we should be often, and it is, I believe we're all here for a purpose. I think we're all very creative in different ways, and it is unlocking access to our inner being who has all the resources. And in my case I was fortunate because when I found my voice, which wasn't until I was in my 40s, so much opened in me through sound. And so for me, that was then opened much more my creativity. But our creativity is really who we are, how much we can live in the present moment and just be ourselves.
Yeah,
And, we are all connected. So when we walk in a room, our energy makes a difference. So
yeah,
if our minds are heavy thinking about the past or worrying about the future, we're not shining, we're not giving of ourselves, our beautiful soul who's come in physical form to share themselves. And the more we
yeah,
can be in ourselves, as in the present moment, as in embodied, as comfortable in ourselves, the more we're giving that out to people without any conscious need to do anything. We're just being ourselves.
yeah. So it's that case of doing the inner work, becoming more comfortable with who you are, being able to put your trials and tribulations in context to the light, to understand that we may all gone through dark times. They do say that all growth comes from trauma. And trauma can be as simple as a seed breaking open. Trauma, it is a kind of trauma. So when I say trauma, I mean it in the spiritual sense of a breaking of some kind. And they say all growth comes from trauma, but it's not. If the seed continued to complain that it was broken, how could the roots healthily grow into the soil? Yeah. So it's a case of, again, this correspondence that you offered us, the correspondence with the leaves falling. Yeah, but I'm not a tree, I'm not a seed. However, correspondence and the concept of as above, so below is in a very important part of my work. From, I could use the example of the Hermetic principle of the law of correspondence. And it's that as above, so below. So it would be as without, so within. So as without literally means what's external is the same as what's internal. And that explains how we are mirrors of each other and how we reflect each other, how we're all catalysts for each other's healing. And when we can realize that, we can calm down about, behaviors that might seem close up and personal and threatening. We can handle them differently. I'm not talking about, global traumas that are going on at the moment. They're very troubling for everybody. I'm talking about doing the inner work and learning to put trauma in context within our own lives and not letting trauma become so burdensome to our life that we do not thrive, that we literally simply survive. And it's about thriving. We're given this beautiful planet. Absolutely. It's like being on holiday every single day, just being here on the planet, isn't it, really? When you think about it. We live, apparently, on one of the most beautiful planets in the universe. So we have a beautiful home. And we just need to look after it, look after our community, the collective, look after our communities, our friends, our families, and ourselves. We work on ourselves, let that go out, and what goes out then comes back. That's my belief. So because we all grow from trauma, we grow from it. We meant to leave it behind. We're meant to grow away from it. But we can't forget it was there because it was an important period of our lives, or we might have had lots of different periods of our lives that are traumatic. Each of those aspects and those experiences helps us to form resilience, helps us to form the ability to what is it, that bounce back ability? Is that what resilience is? It helps us to exercise our motivation muscle. So without being trite, it took me a long time to get to this understanding from having had, you know, traumatic history to heal myself. But I do know that the main thing that's healed me is the inner work. It's the inner work, absolutely the inner work. And once I had the courage to do the inner work and realize that that meant facing my own less than nice behaviors, let's say, rather than going into too much detail, shocking as it was and shameful as it was to me, and as guilty as I felt, being able to face those things I did that I would cringe with embarrassment and shame around, once I faced them and cleared them, they didn't have the power that they used to have over me. But once I realized that I could heal those within myself, then when I saw someone else doing something that I thought was shameful, or somebody should feel guilty about doing something like that, I'd go, hang on a minute, you've just spent all that time clearing your own stuff. You know, don't dirty it again by criticizing someone else for doing something that you probably would have done 20 years ago anyway. So that's where I got, and it became almost amusing that I would have criticized someone for doing something. And do you know what I still do? I still can be critical and judgmental. I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm not. But now I can catch myself quickly when I'm doing it, because I see that I'm doing it. I'm more conscious that I'm doing it, if that makes sense. And I can kind of, oh, sorry, you know, and send a little prayer and try and drag back any negative thoughts that I've sent up there into the universe, try and drag them back and say, didn't mean it, you know. But I wouldn't have been able to do that before.
There's a lot I could respond to in what you've said. I think that, as you say, the key is when we heal ourselves, we have choices. When we're avoiding, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. When we're not willing to look at ourselves, then we're more likely to react. And I know for me, it was a long journey. It's taken me a long time to feel comfortable in my own skin. And what blocked me was shame. And you mentioned the word shame. I think shame is, well, certainly for me, it was probably the number one thing that made my life an inner hell and stopped me enjoying life. Because it was like everything I did, I thought it was all personal. What I've discovered is that most of us inside think we're not good enough. You know, somehow we're not living up to what we should be doing, or there's some we're our own worst enemy. We hear that phrase a lot. And the other thing about going into the darkness, you know, it's the shadow work. When you shine the light, when you acknowledge the shadow, it's not that terrible. It's not like the monsters in the night that you were scared of when you were a child and didn't want the light put off when you went to bed. You know, it's just some content that, you know, you thought was so terrible. And I think I want to say it took me a long time to be willing to face my own healing, because like you, Jules, there were lots of parts of me that I didn't feel good about. But I was so identified with that. I really thought I was fundamentally flawed. And I thought that, you know, if I went to a therapist, they were going to confirm that there was something wrong with me, or they were going to say I was too far gone for them to help. You know, I didn't understand that all it was is I'd taken on some sort of patterns and some conditionings and distorted them. And that was running my life. And from the outside, people would think I was doing all these amazing things. But inside, you know, I felt like I was a fraud, because there was all these really wonderful things, you know, which were true, but that wasn't what I was feeling on a day-to-day inside myself. And so it was like, you've got to keep people away because they might discover what I'm really like. And of course, all that was misconceptions. And I would say to anyone who's perhaps feeling they need some help, but scared of it, it's so worth it. Finding the right person where you feel, which is a key, that you feel will accept you and you can build trust with. Because a lot of us didn't grow up feeling, you know, we could trust people, or, you know, trust was betrayed in different ways. So it's a huge thing as an adult to make that choice that, but it's going, I deserve to heal myself. I really want to take my place more fundamentally in this beautiful planet. And I'm feeling very unfulfilled. So maybe I need help. And if you don't know how to go about it, or you think you haven't got any money, just ask. Just ask. Even if you don't know who you're asking to, I would like help. Please, can you show me how I can move from how I am today to being more of who I'd like to be? And you may not even know what that looks like. But once you've released, or certainly talking about myself, the more I released of the shame, the more it's like I can rejoice in the things that give me joy, and the gifts that I brought in to share with people.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's really lovely. It reminds me of Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Eat, Pray, Love,
Oh yeah,
where she got to such a place where she was just so discombobulated with her own life that I think she was laying on the bathroom floor having a bit of a meltdown and saying to God, I need help, and very shortly after that came the help. I can't even remember what the help was, but she ended up,
yeah,
writing the book Eat, Pray, Love, and she's an amazing inspirational woman to me. But she was at one point lay on the bathroom floor, almost like a newborn baby, feeling so helpless and crying out to God for help. And God brought that help. And when I say God, I mean the invisible kind of supportive energy of, you want to call it your higher self, you want to call it your own connection to, whatever there is that's greater than us. Yeah. And when I say the word God, it's with a small g. It's not with the capital G that represents certain belief systems. And I've not got anything against religion per se, and I have too, you know. But when you were talking earlier about, certain patterns and that that you distorted, do you not think too that society and the collective almost energy, because for me energy is real, energy can be multiplied. When a group of healers get together, the healing vibration is amazing. And I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, because I know you know about that. But when you get a lot of healers together, the actual vibration is off the scale. The same can happen when you get a lot of people who have a negative kind of vibration. So when you have something out there in the collective, like say a tragedy happen, or you get a lot of newspapers writing the same articles condemning a particular process, and TV, that then becomes a magnified low vibrational energy to which we are susceptible if we read the newspapers a lot, watched TV a lot, which I did. I absorbed well, my parents will have absorbed a lot from that, and then they would give that down to our we children, my neighborhood. I'd go to school, it would be reiterated. So I would be immersed in a lot of low vibrational rules and regulations that were believed to be the best for me, but may not have been. So do you believe too that sometimes the collective energy can be not in the best interest of an individual, but we don't actually realize it, and we just absorb the negative stuff as
definitely.
well? And we not only absorb it from our parents. If our parents says to us one day, oh, you're a very naughty girl, and that lands deeply, then I grew up believing I'm wicked and unworthy. But then when I can read about somebody's done something wonderful and I haven't done anything like that, that makes me feel even more unworthy. So then I totally ram it in, I totally ram it in. And I totally understand where you were coming from when you said that about, you took it on board, you distorted it. We all do, but the collective pressure can be very powerfully against an individual if that individual is not a little bit more aware than they
Definitely.
used to be.
When I'm talking sometimes to a stranger, I sometimes say, what do you really like doing? What gives you joy? And it brings out a whole different side of them. Because maybe the beginning of the conversation was complaining or moaning about something going on, and or something in the papers, because a lot of people's conversation is about things out there. It's not
Mm.
themselves. And then they might start talking about their dog or their allotment and a whole different, and it's like, it's so lovely. And they'll start smiling and they just have, I've just taken them out of their normal conversation. And
Mm.
in recent years, people have said, I really like being around you. You're so positive. But that wasn't something that came easy for me. I had to kind of work at it. And for
Yeah.
me, a daily practice of gratitude has made a big difference, because there's so much to be grateful for. But if I get up in the morning and I look at the grey day, or it's raining or it's cold, and I start thinking about that and then feed that thought, my vibration will go down. It doesn't mean I don't have a reaction to it. It also could be telling me I need to put more clothes on. For me, I might need to use a light box because I suffer very badly from SAD syndrome. But I don't stay in it in the way I would have done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
When I go out, I'm not then saying to everybody, "Oh, it's an awful weather." I had a lovely joke. Someone was saying, "Well, it's better than no weather," as a response to, particularly in England, we talk about the weather all the time.
We do.
But and often what people are saying is, I'm feeling quite low inside myself, but I don't feel I can tell you that, so I'll talk about the weather instead, or I'm feeling scared about something. But you're quite right. I mean, I don't think it was a big thing when I stopped reading papers, because I thought I was doing something terrible. And I would buy the Sunday papers and I would read them. And then I realized I wasn't getting round to reading them. But that's what my father had done. And it was a real big thing when I just thought, I don't have to buy them. So we were very much in this country having the news on all the time. And for some people, I'm aware, in their workplace, they have no control if the news and there's radio or something's on. And I realize that isn't easy, but it's then consciously saying, when I have a control over my environment, when I go home, is there something I can do? So I'm more aware of now in the morning, what kind of music do I need to listen to? This morning I listened to some bird song on Spotify. It just took me out of the other things that were going on for me. I
Mm.
found out that people were very influenced by sound and music, and people don't always consciously choose it. So they get in the car and they put on something they were listening to before, or they let someone else choose the playlist, instead of them perhaps going, maybe I'll make a playlist of things that really cheer me up, feel me good, or when I'm not feeling motivated, maybe a playlist of things that will motivate me, or playlist of things that really calm me down. That you're actually choosing what gives me joy, because my playlist wouldn't be the same as yours. We're all different, but it's like more of a, I think what I'm getting at is, the more we choose what we would like to focus on, as opposed to just reacting. When we
Mm.
do unconsciously react, we've got more of a toolbox, somewhere to go to say, this would be better for me. I mean, some people will automatically do it. They had a stressful day at work, they'll come home, they'll put on their, whatever, they've got their own ritual. And I think in the lockdown, it allowed people to have more time for themselves. But I'm sad that for a lot of people, they've gone back into chasing their tail, and obviously
Mm.
a lot of financial pressures and other ones. But I still think the more you prioritize taking care of yourself, the more energy you've got to deal with the very real challenges that are around us. There are at any age, and there are particular ones at the moment.
Yeah. It's interesting how you mentioned that you were speaking to people and somebody might be complaining about something and you ask them what gave them joy, and your middle name, Joy.
Yeah, I'd
It's
say
an intentional.
joy came when I was recording my music. My birth certificate says Susan, and I'd sort of become Susie. And then one day someone said, well, why don't you call yourself Suzi Joy all the time? So I thought, well, what about my grumpy days? Um, and then I thought, well, that's being human, isn't it? And I've mentioned that to a few people, and they always laugh. And what is really interesting, Jules, is that in England, we don't really do double barrel names. So when I say my name's Suzi Joy, some people think it's my surname. Some people, if I'm in a really good energy space, will remember Joy. They won't remember the Susie. Others will just assume it's my surname and just call me Susie and not Suzi Joy. But some people call me Joy, and which I love, because they picked up on an energy. And I feel like my aim now, my service, my gift is to help bring more joy in the world. And that really starts with, how can I give myself more joy and a more fulfilling life? So that's, where I'm at in myself. And I'm really proud of myself how far I come, because I was not a person that you would necessarily see as joyful for a lot of my life.
I was kind of giggling and thinking you're being called Suzi Joy Grumpy Lever, but never, never, no. But when you were talking about what we focused on about the lower sort of vibrational feelings that we have, and we can choose to focus, not to literally focus on them. We can choose not to feed them. It reminded me of the Buddhist teaching about non-attachment. And I find one of the easiest ways to understand that is by saying that is one of the explanations for me of non-attachment, is to let the low vibrational feelings come, recognize them, let them flow through the body, because they are a change in your body's vibration. So it doesn't just boom, go like that. You have to give it time, which then helps you to learn patience, which then helps you to learn humility, because I'm not feeling a bit rubbish. So I'm going to just sit here till I feel better. It's a Winnie the Pooh thing, isn't it? Sat with Piglet, Winnie the Pooh, I'll just sit with you, or Piglet sits with Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
It's humility, and it's companionship. Maybe if someone could sit with you in companionable silence. So I think the
so important
sort
what
of
you said. I'm interrupting you because I feel what you said is so important, because I used to think, oh, I had to get rid of the emotion like that. But it's not denying it. It can be teaching me something. Things that help me is going, oh, anger's visiting today. Or, I'm feeling really anxious and insecure. And sort of, well, this belongs. This is part of me. This part needs reassurance. Before I would just try and busy myself, or, try and ignore that part, which was screaming, I'm wanting love from you. I'm feeling scared, or that person, I feel upset by something someone said. And the more whatever we resist persists. So I think that's really important. It takes time, and we need to honor where we are. It's the ocean and the waves that come and go. But remember that we're not our emotions. We are so much more than our bodies and our emotions.
Yeah.
I'm not grumpy, but at times I do feel grumpy because
Yeah.
So thank
So
you for highlighting.
what you explained there, I thought was brilliant, because it made me think of someone who's a carer, say a nurse, and they go to work and they're treating a patient. Yeah. While they're with that patient, they're giving their all. They are sitting with the patient with humility and patience and care and nourishment. But then they go home again. They don't attach to that patient, do they? They might think about the patient. Oh, hope he gets better, hope she gets better, whatever. But they don't attach to that patient. They let it go. Yeah. And similarly with our own feelings, we have to be patient with them as a patient, don't we? So again, but they're not attaching to them, just let them come and go. But don't, like you said you used to ignore yours. I did. I was not a denier. I was an ignorer. I would know that I felt rubbish, but I would pretend I didn't. And I would put on that mask of everything's fine, extra lipstick on, maybe a thicker foundation and higher heels, and walk down the road going, oh yes, everything's fine, when actually inside it wasn't. A very similar kind of scenario.
I thought, my way of dealing with all my early trauma was numbing out and disassociating, which I think is very common for a lot of people. But of course, when we do that, we do miss, as you said so beautifully earlier, we're on a beautiful planet. If we're walking around numb, we might way of coping with difficult emotions, but we're going to miss all the little things, all the magic.
Yeah.
I came into my flat earlier, and this hadn't happened before. I had my keys, and they were making a sort of percussion sound against the door, and I thought, I've never heard that before. So I kind of went back and started playing with it for a while. And I thought I would never have done that in the past. My mind would have been too busy. And it was just a simple thing, but it made me
So
smile.
you wouldn't have been present to it. You wouldn't have been in the present moment. You would have been 3 hours hence or 3 hours yesterday
Yeah,
back.
right.
Whereas being in the present, I mean, obviously, Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about this. He brings it forth from a lot of belief systems around presence. Being present with someone else, but also being present to yourself in the present moment. The word present is one of the most beautiful words for me in the English language because it means a gift,
Mm.
a present. Yeah, it's a gift. And if someone's giving you a gift, yeah, it's joyful, isn't it? So you were talking earlier about, oh, I was talking about group think, how it can be quite
Mm.
oppressive, but group healing, which is a different kind of group think, it's more of a group mindful, intentional thing, can be very uplifting. And it's multiplying the intention from people's hearts to uplift. And I just wondered whether you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually had I actually wrote an ebook on my insights on relationships. But when I was writing that and I was writing about the bigger picture, I realized I've been incredibly privileged because I've twice been in a room with a lama, like the Dalai Lama, not the Dalai Lama, but a lama, Tibetan lama. And these people, their energy is so evolved and such a higher vibration that it just transformed the whole room. I remember feeling, I was quite low in myself, and then my heart just broke open, and it was just such a privilege to have that opportunity within two totally separate occasions. And I know most people have not had that opportunity. Although through the internet we can watch someone like that and receive their resonance, and that will actually make a difference, which is why the spiritual teachers who write books and talk are so important, like you mentioned Eckhart Tolle, because his vibration will help us. I just want to say though that these are all stepping stones, because traditionally people almost got into gurus and giving their power to people. I think there's a time for a mentor, and for some people following a guru was really important for them, but I do see it as a stepping stone to finding our own link, our own inner being with the link with everything.
Yes.
But I've also been very gifted to be at a healing center in Brazil, which is one of the most powerful portals on the whole planet, where there are so many invisible helpers. There are ascended masters, archangels, saints, enlightened beings. And you sense them, you feel them. They call it the house of love. And I would say when I went there, it felt like this is what the fifth dimension is. In the planet, we're living on the third dimension, maybe going into the fourth. And from that environment, it wasn't all sweetness and light, because when you're in that level of love, the shadow comes up, the darkness, but people's hearts are open. So maybe if I was feeling very, not, perhaps judging myself, somebody else would be, their heart would be wide open and they would sweep me up in that love and that joy. And you spend a lot of time in what they call the current there, which is kind of meditation, but it's the idea of the current, the electricity flowing through, that gives the energy for the incredible healings to happen. And this is a place where I literally saw people with so-called terminal cancer reverse it. I saw people get out of the wheelchairs for the first time in their life, incredibly moving. This was a place that taught me, well, humility is the kind of obvious word, but yeah, not having the words to explain something. And I went there with the idea that I'd be judged. They'd say, "Well, we can't help you," and because I didn't receive that. But it was just the wonderment that there are all these beings, who some of whom are being physical forms, some who haven't, who are there helping us. We just need to ask, which is back to what I said earlier. If you feel like you need help and you don't know how, just ask.
Mm.
And it's the privilege, because that collective energy. This was also a place that's built on crystal. There's been prayers over 40 years. There's all sorts of reasons why this is such a powerful vortex. But people can often feel it going to a waterfall, or there might be a young child in their family. They just feel that child's radiating a different energy and they feel good around them.
Mm.
There's all sorts of ways of connecting. I realise that some people watching this might feel, well, that's all right for her, but I can't do anything other than my daily life. But the reality is that anything's possible, and that's going to the centre taught me the impossibility was possible, and that if you pray, and these saints and things, that's what they believed in. They believed in unconditional love.
Yes, definitely. That reminds me of when you bring in, pray. You can also bring in meditation. You can bring in shamanic journeying, and I follow a lot Alberto Villoldo. I just think it's just so lovely, and he says that in the East they meditate, in South America they did shamanic journeying, and in the West they pray. And he says he does all of it. He does all three of them. He said, so whatever you do that works, do it. So that is the place where you can take yourself a little bit aside from what's going on for you in the real world. When you can take yourself away from the distorted point of view, the negative patternings, the grumpiness, the egoic, and you can float off into a nice meditation. You can pray. I mentioned Elizabeth Gilbert saying to God, I need help. Reach out, ask. Shamanic journeying can help you connect to your guides. When I discovered that actually is just okay, it's not something only for people who come from a particular heritage, who've been trained for 10 years. Anyone can do it. Yeah. It's useful to learn it from someone who understands, but anyone can do it. Yeah. That has been the biggest, that and meditation and prayer. So I have prayed in my life for red wellies when I think I was 4. And I remember lying in my little bed being told that the next day after school we were going to get some red wellies for me after school. And I remember going like this and doing my prayers like you see people do. You sit at the side of the bed and you do your prayers. I was laid down and I did my hands and I said, please, God, please let it rain tomorrow afternoon after school. We finished school about 3 o'clock. It was a very precise prayer. And I gave him our address and I told him what time we were going for the red wellies. And I said to God, please may it rain so that I can wear my red wellies coming home. And of course, it rained. And I wore the red wellies and I splashed and splished and jumped through the puddles. So that was it. Yeah, sorted. And then the next time I meditated was when I was going through a very bad time when I was in my teenage years, because I was 15 and, rebellious. And I got ready for school, went off on the bus, and then got off in the town centre and decided I wasn't going to go to school, and wandered around the town centre and felt really bad, actually. I'm laughing, but it wasn't funny. I felt really, unhappy. And I went into W.H. Smith. I was an avid reader, and they had a book sale on, and the coin that I had in my hand that was from my bus fare, I spent on a book, and it said, Meditation for Beginners. And I remember it was 50 pence, this book, in the sale. And that was my lunch money and bus fare. So it shows inflation. So I spent it on the book and then walked back home and told everyone, I've been sent home from school because I'm not very well. Went to bed and started reading this book about meditation. But there were 2 meditations in that helped me because I wasn't sleeping very well. And 2 meditations in that book helped me, one with relaxation and one with sleep. And I still do them to this day, which is 50 years. So I still do those 2 meditations to this day. The odd time I can't sleep, I do the sleep meditation probably 3 times, 4 times a year at most. I do it. I've taught it to my partner. We call it the tunnel meditation. And he might say to me one night, I can't sleep. And I'll say, have you done the tunnel meditation? The tunnel meditation. Pardon?
Do you still have your red wellies?
No.
I didn't know as an adult whether you'd bought red wellies.
Oh, I have. Yes, my wellies are red at this moment in time. They were gifted to me by someone. Yeah, I have still got red wellies. And so then the shamanic journey came to me about 7 years ago. About 7 years ago. And I just absolutely recommend any form of higher thought form, which I call praying, meditation, shamanic journeying. They're all higher forms of thought, not higher as in better. Well, yeah, potentially, because they're very healing, but higher as in not feeling so heavy in yourself when you are in those places. You do actually feel lighter.
And the other thing is you use the word real world, which, I also use, is used a lot. But I'd like to just remind people that my belief is that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So
Yeah,
when we do these meditations or anything that calls to us, we're giving ourselves the time to step back from all the material concerns, all
yeah,
the to-do all the things that are worrying us, and reconnecting to that remembering of who we truly are. And from
yes,
that, new insights come and new ways of dealing with our day-to-day challenges.
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
And also creating a different real world, because we've talked about being around people whose vibration brings us up as opposed to energies that drain us. So we hear that we create our reality, but our thought forms do make a difference. And there's a whole science of the law of attraction that's been proven. What we focus on is what we create. I think
absolutely.
I think I'm now gonna, next time it rains, look out for red wellies.
Red wellies. Get yourself some red
I've been
wellies. Let's
noticing
start a red welly movement. Let's call it Suzi Joy and the Red Welly Girls. Or boys. And boys. Or
maybe
men and
I
women.
need to write a song about it.
Will you? It's so Winnie the Pooh, isn't it? Seriously. So on that note, talking about the reality is that I could talk like this and carry on forever. And there is a limit. So I'm going to wind it up there. Are you wanting to add anything, Suzi
No,
Joy,
thank
before we
you. I
finish?
really enjoyed the conversation, and I really trust that people watching it will receive whatever they need to, and that
And
we've
I will put all your details down in the description. So if anybody would like to contact you, the links will all be there, and I'll get them all written up and explained so that when we publish this conversation, all the description will be there and all your contact details. So anybody can just click on and just have a look at some of your work and your services that you offer. I've personally had one-to-one with you, which was just such fun. And I've also done a group session where you facilitated that. And that again was such fun. So I do recommend people, have a taster of your work where they can find it on the links. So on that note, I'll say goodbye. And thank you so much for agreeing to be my first guest on Ancient Moon Woman and Friends. Thank you, Suzi Joy Lever.
thank you.